Cries of voter fraud and intimidation are nothing new. The 1888 race between incumbent President Democrat Grover Cleveland and Republican Benjamin Harrison was no exception. In colonial times, most Americans declared their votes out loud and in public. In 1888, voters in some states still did so. The Pilgrims wrote their votes into what was known as a proxy, or ticket, printed by each faction. In 1888, each party in each ward produced its own ticket. The ward bosses who used this system thrived because district ballot design made secrecy impossible. This meant that votes could be bought, knowing if the bought voters strayed by watching the different ballots being placed in the ballot boxes. In some places, voters handed their vote to the election officials, inviting further fiddling with results. According to S.J. Ackerman, the 1888 ballot fraud was so widespread it had its own vocabulary. Colonizers were groups that bought votes who moved en masse to turn the vote in doubtful wards. Floaters went from party to party, casting ballots in response to the highest bidders. Repeaters voted early and sometimes in disguise often. Indiana, where there was no voter registration, invited such misdeeds. In September of 1888, both Indiana, his home state, and New York looked bad for Harrison. Grover the Good had won the 1884 election despite sneers that he was a draft dodger and a womanizer. Famously charged with having had an illegitimate son several years earlier, the bachelor candidate did not deny it. He married beautiful 21-year-old daughter of his late law partner while in office. Cleveland's integrity and reform policies impressed voters. The Republican campaign taught, "Ma, where's my pa? Gone to Washington, ha, ha, ha," proved prophetic. Warned at various times that his stand on tariffs would cost him votes. In his day, tariffs paid government's bills. There was no income tax. Cleveland eventually shot back. What is the use of being elected or reelected unless you stand for something? Cleveland, with a respectable record and spectacular First Lady, became the first Democrat renominated for president since 1840. Then, the robber barons began flooding Republican coffers with campaign boodle. In New York, Republican National Campaign Chairman Matt Quay spent lavishly to buy the support of renegade Democrat bosses in the big cities. The Republicans, it seemed, managed to finagle enough votes and controlled the election. Harrison was confident he would carry Cleveland's home state, where Cleveland was expected to run well behind the party's victorious gubernatorial nominee. In Indiana, still looked like a big problem. Near the campaign's close, a suspicious Indiana Railway postal agent intercepted one of the incriminated circulars. Newspaper headlines followed. Dudley and Query rallied to blast the Democrats' forgery, and Dudley slapped libel suits on the newspapers that printed it. The vote buying rolled on. Party faithful even brought voters over from Pennsylvania, which was safely in Harrison's column. With the whole nation watching, Dudley brazenly bought votes in Indiana. But instead of going to prison where his personal knowledge of Dudley's doings would put him, Harrison went to Washington.